So I was on a plane one day, and there was a lady who was telling me about how all the Mormons in her area were very insular and didn't reach out. They'd invited her over to dinner or something a few times, but for the most part, they were very insular. And she was telling me how once a month they would go around and send out invites and invite other neighbors to their parties, and she was never invited. And it was later when I was putting things back together in my mind and realized that those invites she was talking about was fast offerings, and kind of caused me to chuckle. Um, so once a month, Mormons go around and with fast offering slips. And if you don't know what fast offering is, the first Sunday of every month, Mormons are invited to fast or to go without food or drink for 2 meals. The money that we would have spent on those 2 meals, we are also invited to donate to those that don't have food or drink. So directly in the ward of, say, 500 to 1,000 people, we're all invited to fast. During those Sundays, we get up in what's called fast and testimony meeting and bear our testimony or share our belief or our knowledge of God and His restored gospel. But at the same time, we go without food for 2 meals that we might be able to give our 2 meals to someone that doesn't have meals, doesn't have food. And so I thought it was interesting how she was making this judgment on how these Mormons weren't coming to her to give her invites to a party, when in reality um, they were asking more or less for money to give to homeless people, and not necessarily homeless, but to those that don't have food. And while I'm sure she would have loved to give, it was just an interesting judgment. I'll go back to my high school days. I hang out with a group of friends that was majority of them were LDS, and so I'd frequently go to parties that weren't LDS friendly, and I didn't drink or anything, didn't do drugs, but those friends were still my friends. They had great hearts, and I loved them and still love them very much, and for who they are on the inside. Um, I was in an interesting spot in high school because I didn't even realize this, but I later found out that most of the staunch LDS crowd thought that I drank heavily and partied and were kind of reserved from being my friend for that reason. And then a lot of the hardcore partiers that weren't in my immediate group of friends, um, they had gotten word that I didn't drink or didn't smoke, and so they didn't really want to have me at their parties because I didn't drink and didn't smoke, and they thought I might be judging them or something. This wasn't always the case. There was a lot of different parties we went to, but there were definitely groups of people in both of those, and I just found it interesting how neither of those groups knew me very well. Those that were judging me, that is. The ones that weren't judging me knew me well, and they knew that it didn't matter whether they were LDS and didn't party, or whether they were LDS and did party, or whether they were non-LDS and didn't party, or non-LDS and did party. Um, I generally choose my friends based on their heart, not based on um, their life choices. I've got a lot of friends that have done dumb things in their life, and I probably did it with them. But people have hearts, and I believe that that is largely how God's going to judge us. He's going to judge us on our actions and things that we've done in this life, and particularly on how we've listened to Him and followed what He has to say. But a big part of how we'll be judged is on our heart and where we wanted to be. If we wanted to be a good person, and if we'd strive to be a good person, even though we had shortcomings and feelings, was our heart in the right place? Were we trying to be giving? Were we trying to be loving? Were we looking out for our fellow man? And I think that if we can use that kind of judgment more often, rather than based on more or less petty actions, and more upon the heart, on what is good, that it will bring us a long way in finding out what God is really about, and how He wants us to live our life. So get out there and offer your neighbors fast offerings. And the ironic thing about that lady is when I invited her and I said, well, if you don't feel that the Mormon friends are reaching out to you, then Why don't you reach out to them? She's like, oh no, I won't do that. I'm not gonna reach out to them. I'm not gonna do that. And so it's always a dilemma. We can complain about our own world around us, or we can be an active change in that world and not have to worry about the negative things and focus on the positive. Focus on the heart. Focus on the love, and you'll be good. Just remember, in the gospel of Jesus Christ, you won't love it unless you live it. And I say that in His name. Amen.